Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel, Blue Nose Trading. My name is Tori Solis, and today I'm going to be making a damp box to keep my work damp and malleable for an extended period of time. A damp box is essentially a box that you can seal that's going to have a layer of Pottery Plaster number 1 at the bottom. And the purpose of this box is to store your work so that you can come back to it at a later time. If you're familiar with my work, you know that I throw a lot of pots on the wheel and then I come back to them later and do sculpture and hand building work on top of my pots, such as my chickens or my dragons. This is going to be extremely beneficial to me because I'm going to be able to store my pots until I have the time to come back and do the sculptural work on top of them. This could be beneficial to you for a number of reasons, but the core purpose of the box is you put your stuff in there and it doesn't dry out. So let's get started making a damp box today. You want to make sure that we're wearing a mask when we're working with Pottery Plaster because you don't want to be breathing this in. It can be hazardous to your respiratory health. So for safety, put on a mask. If you have a better mask than this, that's all the better. This probably isn't technically enough protection, but it's what I've got right now. And I'm also going to wear gloves to reduce the amount of mess. The box that I am making is 24 inches by about 17 inches. And I want to make my plaster anywhere from 1.5 to 2 inches thick. So I'm going to have all of the measurements and everything down below, and you can also find a PDF below to calculate measurements for other dimensions of boxes if a different dimension box would suit your needs better, or if you're only able to find a box in a different dimension. So first we're going to measure out the plaster. I've already pre-measured my water. It's 1.9 gallons, so I've got that measured here. And then I'm going to need to have 21 pounds of plaster. So I'm going to start measuring out the plaster in here on my scale, and then I'm going to put it into here. Let's make sure my scale is calibrated. And open up my plaster carefully. You want to create as little dust as is possible for you while you're working with this stuff. Getting in here. Visually looking it over, I determined that I'm going to need a larger bucket. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add my water. This is cold to room temperature water. If you use a warm water, it is going to cause your plaster to set faster, and it's going to give you less time to work. So we're going to add the water into this bucket first. For my measurements, this is 1.9 gallons of water for the size that I'm making here. We add in our 1.9 gallons of water. Smooth out our bag here. Bring over our plaster that we've measured out, which was 21 pounds of plaster. And I'm just going to start slowly adding all of this plaster into this water. As you're pouring your plaster into your water, you want to pour slowly in a way that allows the plaster to dissolve as you're pouring it into the bucket. You do not want to pour all of the powder in here at once because it's going to create a ton of lumps. Adding it slowly and allowing it to dissolve slowly as you're adding it will ensure that you get a nice even mix. Once I have all of the powder put into my water, I'm going to mix it up with my hands, feeling around and working out any lumps that I find as I go. Now that I have the plaster mixed, I'm going to carefully and slowly pour the plaster into the container that I've chosen to make my damp box out of. I want to pour as evenly and slowly as possible to prevent creating a ton of bubbles in my damp box plaster bottom. You don't want to have a ton of bubbles because we're going to try to work most of those out and they can cause problems, hold clay. Just avoiding bubbles is best. So after I get it all poured in there, I'm gonna feel around with my hands for any clumps or any pieces of plaster that I didn't mix thoroughly in the bucket. It feels pretty good, so I'm gonna go ahead and get these gloves off, and I'm going to grab my rubbing alcohol spray bottle. I am using isopropyl alcohol, which is going to be used to break the bubbles at the surface of the plaster. So I'm going to tap the sides all around this container with my hand gently for a few minutes to work up the bubbles that are in the plaster. I'm spraying it continuously with this rubbing alcohol because that will cause the bubbles at the surface to pop. The one last thing I'm going to do is wipe off the sides here so that these pieces don't dry up and fall into my work later. I'm also going to have to add a piece of wood here to the back to get my slab level. The surface I'm working on wasn't totally level, so this will help keep my box level. After about 30 minutes or so, this should be ready. So now I'm just going in here with a damp towel and wiping off any excess bits that could break off later and fall into my work. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to see all of my videos way before everybody else and get exclusive content and help support my work, you can become a patron at patreon.com/bluenosetrading. If you thought this video was helpful and you'd like to see a weekly art video, you can subscribe to this channel, and I will see you guys next week.